A busy weather night on this Monday, the second day of January 2023. Warm weather continues in the east. We've got flash flooding and severe weather going on in parts of the lower Mississippi Valley. Winter storm warnings posted throughout much of the plains, central Rockies, and extending up into a small portion of the upper Midwest. And it never rains in California. Well, more than likely, it will never stop raining in California the way it's been going. We will talk all about this and so much more. Your hair will stand on end. And in one person's case, it'll just be a little bit shorter than it usually is. Right here on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is, of course, as always, brought to you by our friends at Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, Long Island's largest rock salt source. And if we ever see some winter in the east, you may need the rock salt or other snow and ice melt products, or heaven forbid, a snowblower, and any other general supplies, including generators, flashlights, scrapers, shovels, etc., etc. You can get them all at Omni with the best prices anywhere. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com. Happy Monday, Joe.
Is it I have been having, Joe, so much difficulty. Oh, there you hold on a second. You disappeared on me. And hang on, folks. It's a new year, so we're going to do it a little differently today. Joe is going to be on the left, and I'm going to be on the right. And there we are. So I have had so much difficulty trying to. When you're on a regular routine, I have always thought that each day of the week has its own distinct feel to it. Mondays feel a certain way. Tuesdays feel a certain way. Wednesdays feel a certain way. Thursday was always my favorite day of the week because it was the next to last day of the work week. And then Friday, of course, feels like a Friday. And then the weekend is the weekend. I have lost, in these last 2 weeks, I have lost all sense of what day the week it is. And I've been told it's Monday, but I'm not sure.
Well, it's not only Monday, it's also a mild Monday, and it's going to get even milder before it turns colder again. In fact, on Wednesday, in spite of cloud cover, in spite of the fact that we still have a chance for a little bit of precipitation, temperatures on Wednesday may very well make it feel more like the middle or latter part of April as opposed to the early days of January.
Yeah, and if there's a peak or two of sun, it could easily make middle to upper 60s.
Oh, easily.
Easily.
If we can manage to get the sun to put in a cameo appearance during the course of the day on Wednesday, you are absolutely right.
And the guidance, the temperature guidance in situations like this is more often than not high enough. Okay, just as it was not low enough with that Arctic air mass, it's just probably not high enough with what is going on. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight. Welcome to those of you who took the holiday off and are coming back for the first time in a while, and welcome to everybody else who's lurking about on watching the Joe and Joe Weather Show. We are on Monday through Thursday at 7:35. We're on Sundays at 11 a.m. We are occasionally on Fridays and Saturdays if there's a storm around, and we will let you know about that if and when that ever happens. And subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can turn your notifications on. This way you always know that the Joe and Joe Weather Show is on. David Fuller, the first to hit the tip jar tonight. Thank you, David. He said, Happy New Year. Hopefully the stratospheric warming will bring something new. Nothing showing on the GFS yet, but time will tell. Yeah, we'll get into the long range in a little bit. But I just before we do that, before we get into the weather, have you now, Joe? You look fabulous tonight. You've got a lovely haircut. It really is, spectacular.
I'm not happy with it. I don't know about you.
Why?
Is pleased. I don't know.
It looks
good. I think I have the Ethel Mertz look. You
Oh,
know, that one episode
Jesus.
where she had the hair slicked back or whatever.
All right,
I'm just not happy.
you know what? Since you brought this up, let me see. Where is it? Why don't we do this?
What are you going to bring up, Mrs. Bundy?
No. Uh, now that's a haircut.
Yeah.
Uh, what do I'm going to put up a poll. We haven't done that in a while. What do we think of Joe's haircut?
Oh no, please.
This is what happens when you control the board. Um, let's make
And on
the
the and Scott on the chat board says, "At least you have hair."
right. I'll just I'll just put two choices here. Good or not so good. How's that sound?
Sure. Why don't you put a third one there? Fabulous, or
Oh,
I don't know.
I've already I already
Good
put
or
it up.
not so good.
I should have put fabulous. So far, Joe, the 94% of the vote is that it's good. 92%, 8% say 90% now. 12%, 88 and 12. Oh, you're dropping rapidly, Joe. They they the polls must have closed in a few counties that are causing your numbers to drop. We'll have to wait for the CBS News official estimate.
All right.
All right, so
Okay.
let's get at it. One other thing, do you notice anything on my end?
Yes, I do, and I can't believe that it's gone. After more than a year, it's gone.
I
What
have
did you do? Take an axe to it and chop
no,
it down, or
I have been on an absolute frenzy since Saturday with just cleaning everything and putting everything away and just getting my entire house in order, and that included the Christmas tree. I had decided on Saturday it was going to come down. I stared at it for a good part of Sunday as was sitting on the couch for a few minutes. I was staring at it, and I finally said, you know what? Just do it. Actually, it only took me about less than 10 minutes to take it down. I was able to get it back in its original box. My only issue is I can't get I need a second person here to help me. I have a loft in the bedroom. That's where I store a lot of stuff. So I need two people to do this. So but my son-in-law is not going to be up here for a while, so I'm going to just put it. I have a big crawl space, and that's where it's going tomorrow. But yeah, the tree is gone. I got that space back, so it's nice. It really, I'm glad I did it. I don't know how I left it up through the whole
but the
year.
grandkids are probably going to say, "You see, where'd the tree?"
Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything about it. When they come here, I'll see if they notice it. They
Yeah.
might notice it, they might not. But anyway, so I know winter weather lovers are really just not liking this at all, as far as the overall pattern is concerned. And I can tell you, winter weather lovers out there, that if you think I'm going to have some piece of news today that sort of changes the idea of where we're headed in the next 10 days or so, the answer is no, I really don't. It's just not. It's just not there. In fact, even though we've got snow going on where it's going on in the plains and in the mountain areas in the west in California, there's just no real Arctic air anywhere in the U.S. It's just
True.
not there, and there's no way to get it down here.
We have, might I use the term, modest little patches of cold weather that here in the Northeast and in our section of the world will be invading our area this weekend. And then there'll be another modest little patch around the 11th or 12th of January. If you look at both the European and the GFS models, that's for the middle of next week. But if you're looking for something, along the lines of what we had during the Christmas holiday, something that's really going to blast right in and pull those temperatures way, way down, that's not in the cards. That's not in the
No.
cards for the foreseeable next couple of weeks at least.
Yeah, and we're still seeing a lot of indications longer term, second half of the month, where a lot of the long-term models are showing a colder look to things. I hate to hesitate to make it sound even more than that. Um, but I still, it's not that I'm skeptical necessarily. I'm just cautious. Sometimes, when the pattern is bad, it finds a way to stay bad. Just like when the pattern is good, it finds a way to stay good. Uh, I keep going back to the fact that since since October, we've never really sat in a pattern for more than 3 weeks before it changes. So if this winds up changing around the middle of January, or at least start the process of changing in the middle of January, then uh, that 3 week theory will hold without a problem. I'm just concerned. My concern is that it goes on beyond the 3 week period. Because a lot of times in the winter, you lock into a pattern in late December, and it can last that way for 6 or 7 weeks. So even though the models may be showing things changing, that would be my concern here.
It doesn't look good right now, but I'm sure that there was a lot of cold air that uh, pushed down from the polar regions, and I think it's going to take a while for it to you know re-engage to get back. We may have to wait until the end of the month, or maybe the beginning of February, before we have possibly another round of very cold weather pushing down from the polar regions. Till then, it's just going to be mild. I mean, what else can I possibly say? Again, maybe a little bit colder or chillier for the weekend coming up, and again about the middle of next week. But that's about it. Nothing. If you're hoping that it'll get cold enough to possibly support a snowfall or a snowstorm, that does not look like it's going to be the case.
Yeah, no, there's not there's in fact it's almost there's one system on around the 11th or 12th which we could take a look at. There's one system that's going to be coming up offshore, and even then you can't really buy for something to happen. The only thing I would just say is since we certainly it's the second, and over the next 10 or 11 days, there are a couple of little systems there that if a lot of things go in one particular direction, you could wind up with maybe there's a surprise in there somewhere for somebody. I don't know. It doesn't seem likely, but on the other hand, every winter uh, there's always something that pops up at least once, maybe even twice. There's always a few couple of systems that sort of pop up at the last minute or relatively the last minute. So I mean that's about the only thing you can hang your hat on from now till at least the 15th of January. That's the only thing that you could really hang your hat on, and it isn't much.
Adam Lowe points out on the chat board that he has very bad news looking at the snow cover maps for the years that are similar to what we are seeing so far this winter season. The years that were similar, 2012 and 2020. Now, those two years jump out at me because those are the two warmest years overall reported at Central Park. The two, we're not talking about a day or two, or even a week or two, or a month or two. Overall, for the entire year, those 2 years tie for the warmest average or the warmest mean temperature. I think it's something like I'm not sure. I don't want to, since I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I think it's something like 54 or 55.2, something like that. But those are the two warmest years. So Central Park seasonal totals for those two winter seasons: 7.4 and 4.8 inches. If history repeats, winter is done, says Adam Lowe.
All right. Now both years, as I recall, 11-12 was a big La Nina year, and so was 1920 was the first of these three La Nina years. The one thing that may be a little different, and it might be a saving grace, is the fact that the La Nina is weakening rapidly and is forecast to be gone by early February. The one issue with that, though, Joe, and you know this well because you brought this up on a number of occasions, sometimes the atmosphere has muscle memory. And while the longer term features are changing or would have changed, the pattern still sort of behaves in the way that it was in that primary period, and it takes a while to catch up. So I would just put that on the table too. That if the La Nina goes away, it's all fine and dandy, but you wonder whether the atmosphere may still have a little bit of muscle memory left.
Right. These things don't happen. They don't transition like that. And like the elephant that, you know, always remembers, so to speak, so does the weather sometimes. It may take, well, let's put it this way, maybe by the time we get to April or May, all of a sudden the pattern and the configuration, the upper air is favorable for a cold, snowy pattern, except it's April or May, for goodness sake.
Right.
And the winter is all over. It's shot to heck. So,
well, I will tell you this, and I looked at it. I will show it. I'll show it a little later on. The CFS model, which goes out 760 hours, and you know how I feel about the CFS model, which stands for Climate Forecast something or another. In reality, it stands for Can't Forecast, and then just fill in the appropriate S word. The CFS has a significant pattern shift around the 18th, 19th of January, and then it carries it through the rest of its forecast period, which brings us to the end of the month and a little bit beyond that. It does have a snowstorm on my birthday. Okay, it does have a snowstorm for the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states on my birthday, or at least the last run I looked at had one. So,
and your
for what
birthday
it's
is the
worth,
27th?
27th.
Okay. So we'll see.
Yes.
That would be a nice birthday gift, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Well, I mean, birthday gift for you. I mean, where you are, you're talking about a snowstorm for the tri-state area, not for down in
Yes.
northern. Yeah.
No, I wasn't looking down my way so much. I was looking for up in eastern PA to southern New England, maybe down into northern Virginia, somewhere in there. So that's what it has. So yes, it would be a nice birthday present, and it also might be around the time where I will become a grandfather again when my granddaughter arrives. So all this is just sort of converging, Joe. There's a convergence here on the 27th of January. So let's see what we can do with that. Meanwhile,
hey Joe, maybe I might actually, in honor of your granddaughter,
don't
I might
smoke
actually...
that cigar. Please do not. Okay? Do not. I told you what to do with it.
But Joe, it's a Don Leo.
It's a Don Leo. It's a dead Leo. That thing has got dry rot in there. You'll probably get sick if you ever try to smoke it.
At the end of the month, it'll be 23 years old.
God. All right, let's look at let's go to the satellite loop with the lightning strikes, because we do have a really busy night of severe weather going on, and you can see the lightning strikes are considerable from East Texas across Louisiana. We've had a slew of severe thunderstorm warnings, flash flood warnings, and some tornado warnings as well. This is the area the Storm Prediction Center highlighted in their forecast the last few days, and even in their long range, they had it. The large area of enhanced risk and a up to 10% risk of tornadoes, certainly playing up according to plan. And of course, you could see that the bright white hook moving out of Nebraska and into South Dakota is the area that is in the cold air, and there is a significant amount of snow going on up in that region. And of course, as we said, here comes the next surge of rain. Actually, it is already moving through California. Some heavy rains there. And in the meanwhile, here in the east, the warm front is getting ready to set up, and we just have some patchy clouds around. But much of the weather in the east is quiet tonight. I have dense fog here in the mountains, by the way, in northeast Georgia. Started showing up around 4 o'clock this afternoon, and now it's just foggy everywhere.
Well, we've had our fair share of fog locally here in the tri-state area over the last several days. So we're spreading the joy. Join in the fog, Joe. I mean, I know when you're in a foggy condition, you tend to miss a few things.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, whatever.
Thank God we were picked up for another year. Watch watches watches and warnings up tonight. All right, speaking of fog, we'll get that out of the way first. That narrow strip there from east central Illinois across Indiana and Ohio, you can see that that's all dense fog advisories. Also from the Florida Panhandle and southeast Georgia west to southeast Louisiana, we have dense fog advisories. Now let's get into the serious stuff. The yellow is tornado watches, and they are now covering southeast Kansas, eastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, northwest Louisiana. Almost the whole state of Arkansas is under a tornado warning as of 7:56 Eastern Time, and a small portion of northwest Mississippi. We've got flash flood watches up from Louisiana northeastward into southern Illinois and southern Indiana. The reds you see here are I think they're all flash flood warnings except for one. There might be a couple of tornado warnings in the mix here on the map, but there are a lot of flash flood warnings up. In the further to the northwest, we have where the winter storm is going on. Winter storm warnings in southeastern Wyoming, western Colorado, much of Nebraska, much of South Dakota into Minnesota. The purple in Minnesota and into eastern Nebraska is ice storm warnings and winter weather advisories around those areas on all sides. Avalanche warnings after a bout of snow in Utah. A lot of avalanche warnings are up from north to south in the state, running right down the middle. Is that the Wasatch Range?
I think so.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
out in the west in California, we have winter storm watches and winter weather advisories in the Sierra Nevadas. We have flash flood watches up further west toward the coast and down the coast as well. So a busy, busy time in the weather world here across the U.S. And let's jump over to the radar because, as I said, very busy here. We'll give it a quick refresh. And indeed, we've got 2 tornado warnings up at the moment in northern Louisiana. And one tornado warning is actually extending into southeastern Arkansas. A couple of severe thunderstorm warnings are peppering the map in eastern Oklahoma. On up into southeastern Missouri. There's a lot of flash flood warnings up from northeast Texas northeastward into Louisiana, and then also a couple up in northeastern Arkansas and into southern Missouri, and that is all moving to the northeast. So a busy, severe weather night. Meanwhile, you see the swirl here, the upper feature in western Kansas. Spinning around, and the snow that is occurring in eastern Colorado up into Nebraska and also up into parts of South Dakota. These darker green areas indicating probably bands of moderate to heavy snow, and that yellow that shows up near the Minnesota border, I would probably venture a guess that is sleet. In the west, California getting really pummeled here. With heavy rains. I think that's Interstate 5 that goes up the inland of the coast there. And there's a lot of heavy precip there now to the east of I-5, although closer to San Francisco, there's a pretty good concentration. Looks like that moisture is heading into the Sierra Nevadas to be snow. There's light to moderate rain down in L.A., all the way down to San Diego. It's not often, Joe, that we pull the radar up of California to see some, rain down in San Diego, and some heavier rain just offshore the Pacific Northwest. And they ain't done because there's more to come here with the way the upper air is set up, especially in the Pacific. It's just wave after wave, weather system after weather system coming into the West Coast.
It's what we've been promoting for the last week or two. We said, a couple of weeks ago, this is not a La Nina pattern, which leads us to what Climate Prediction Center has been saying now for the past week, that it looks like the La Nina is breaking down. This looks more like an El Nino pattern, although the general trend, they said, is toward neutral or La Nada conditions for a while. Regardless, the promotion back in October about the upcoming winter weather and forecast for the upcoming winter, basing it all on La Nina continuing for one more winter season. That doesn't look like it's going to be the case. In fact, it looks like right now that we could be seeing a lot of wetness for California during the upcoming next couple of weeks, which is something they need. But unfortunately, out in California, it's feast or famine. And when they get this much rain, literally all at once, they have all kinds of problems with flooding, with mudslides, with whatever. There's no middle ground in California, so you just have to put up with it and shut up, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just really quick to see if I can find a better map here. Um, let's see. Let's try this one. Global. Do you want a colored field, a contoured field, or a filled contour?
Well, the contoured fields are always easy for me because you can always see the amounts.
Okay,
But
so
if you
actually,
want to,
it's the wrong. I need. I just realized I need the anomaly. So let me see if I can find the anomaly chart. I mean, the anomaly chart is actually right here. Let me open this up. I was trying to see if the okay, this is pretty good. So here's what you have. I mean, I could tell from just from looking at this and having looked at this a month ago, the La Nina has decreased considerably. It seems to be breaking down the fastest off the coast of South America, still kind of hanging on south of Hawaii and going westward from there, but it's definitely been weakening here. And interestingly enough, except for the shelf water in the northeast Pacific, there's a lot of warm water up in the northern Pacific. So that's usually considered to be a positive if you want to get that ridge to build. Doesn't always work out that way, but it is warmer than normal, and some of those anomalies are quite impressive. And the other thing is, this is a standout too, and it's been like this for quite a while. The Atlantic is very warm in spite of the Arctic air, Joe, there are the anomalies of the sea surface temperatures from Newfoundland down to Virginia and even a little bit further south into North Florida are rather substantial, up to several degrees or more above normal, and it's been like this for quite a while.
yeah, it's and that's one problem for snow lovers. If we ever do get a storm system, a coastal system coming up the eastern seaboard, all you need is an east northeast wind off of the ocean, and that ocean temperature, as Joe just pointed out, abnormally mild, abnormally warm. That'll immediately push temperatures up above freezing. So if you have a storm that starts off as snow, you get that east northeast wind. It ain't going to stay snow for very long.
Nope. All right, let's jump over to SPC. Take a look at what's happening here. So yeah, we've got actually two tornado watches, but they're both pretty big tornado watches that are up at the moment as of 8:03 Eastern Time, and that's all inside that either slight risk or enhanced risk, which they've sort of extended this a bit, made it a little bigger late this afternoon. They got the marginal risk pushed up to almost to St. Louis and north of Kansas City, slight risk in southeast Kansas and across southern Missouri, big area of enhanced risk. And you see that the tornado risk there in that enhanced area is at 10%, and it's a pretty large area of 5% tornado risk. Now, they've also gone to an enhanced risk for tomorrow. I'm in the marginal risk. I'm actually right on the line, Joe. The slight risk goes right over my house and cuts it in half. Okay, in northeast Georgia, because I'm about 20 miles south of the North Carolina, where North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia meet. I'm about 20 or so miles to the southeast of that. And that puts me probably just outside the slight risk. But they've added an enhanced risk for tomorrow from southeast Louisiana into Alabama, and that also is going to come with a 10% tornado risk. And as we go on to the next day, and this is Wednesday into Thursday, we've got marginal risk from parts of the Florida Panhandle northeast up into interior North Carolina, and actually general thunderstorms, Joe, up to central New Jersey, up to Erie, Pennsylvania.
I don't really think that we're going to see up in the immediate New York area. I could be wrong, But I really don't think we're going to see anything. Uh, maybe you'll hear a rumble of thunder or might see a distant flash of lightning. But I think a lot of the convective activity is going to stay south of the New York City metropolitan area, and it looks like again tomorrow will be a relatively mild by the standard of early January, a relatively mild day coming up, but with rain and showers, especially in the afternoon and evening. And on Wednesday, again, if we manage to get even just a small poke of sun, you're going to see those temperatures go flying past the 60-degree mark, which is what I posted on my Facebook page for Wednesday. It's going to be already a very balmy day. And at 60 degrees compares quite favorably to the normal temperature for this time of the year of around 39. So
God.
there you go. It's going to be the midweek is going to be rather mild, rather balmy, and then we'll see a gradual dropping off of the temperature Thursday on into Friday and the weekend. And by Sunday, we should be back to near seasonal, right around 39, 40 degrees.
Yeah. The digital forecast for snow, they seem to have doubled the amounts from yesterday. Now forecasting a band in there of 15 to 20 inches from north central Nebraska, northeast into southeastern South Dakota. 11 from Minneapolis, Sioux Falls, 11. Uh, but I don't have any cities named in there where you see the 17, the 19, the 18, and the 20. Further south, now this already has been snow that has already fallen in areas in Wyoming and down into Colorado. So these are additional inches on top of that. By the way, this map is valid through 7 p.m. Thursday. And then as we go out into the west, now here they're getting ready for the next surge to come in, and mega amounts up in the Sierra Nevadas of 30 inches or more in the yellow. Very impressive, and also in some of the mountains in northeast in northwestern California, going to get some heavy snows there as well. So it's all in the west. It's all going to stay in the west for a while. If we just for laughs, if you want to look at the east, I mean, I'm just got to wait for this map to load. Of course, the lack of snow is almost shameful. The map is embarrassed to finish loading, uh, loading up the snow amounts, but we can tell you that it's going to be very little. So let's just move on. We'll go to the probabilities here from WPC, and this was actually their most recent, which was issued shortly before 4 o'clock this afternoon. They are indicating 50% or higher probabilities for at least 2 inches of snow in central and northern Maine, which is such a shock. Okay, that it's snowing in Maine, particularly in northern Maine. We've got this large area, of course, of certitude of at least 2 in Nebraska up into southwestern Minnesota. And you can see out in the west also certitude in the Sierra Nevadas. I'm going to just put the probability of at least 8. And here too, seems like the models kind of underdid what's going on in the plains. Now they've got the probabilities up to 80% or higher for at least 8 in north central Kansas. I'm sorry, north central Nebraska into southeastern South Dakota and also into southwestern Minnesota. Shall we look at the long range one? Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Not.
Okay, so here's the long range starting with Friday. And of course, there is a 50 to 70, 30 to 50 and 50 to 70% chance of at least 3 inches in Maine and a 10 to 30 in Vermont and New Hampshire. Yippee! And this is again Thursday into Friday, and also again out in the west, you're seeing certitude in the Sierra Nevadas. For Friday into Saturday, some remaining patches of a 10 to 30% chance for at least 3 in the Northeast, and not a whole lot in the West, so that's a switch. Sunday, we've got nothing in the East and something in California and up through the Cascades. And Monday, up through the Sierra Nevadas and all the way up in the Cascades with not a flake, not an ice pellet, nothing in the eastern part of the United States.
It's I know it's very discouraging to those who are, you know, winter weather lovers who want to see some snow, whatever. It's discouraging, but you know, in most winters, a pattern like this just doesn't stay the same for, as you mentioned, Joe. Much longer than 5, 6, 7 weeks. So maybe, just maybe,
Well, no, we're
when
in
we
this. We've been in this 3 week mode. October, November, December. We've basically been like patterns have been changing every 2 to 3 weeks.
right,
So you got to hope that you're going to have to hope that we stay in that 2 to 3 week mode, because if we do, this pattern will be changing around in about starting to change in about 10 days. Okay. But in the meantime, as we look at the various model runs, we can look at the European, and again, there's no flow from Canada into the east. There's just none. It's pretty much zonal in Canada. There's no real connection up to bring down cold air. Deep storm off the Aleutians, trough in the west, kind of a flattish flow here in the east. Not much of a ridge. This is back on New Year's Day. This was back yesterday, and then of course you get some ridging that starts to build up here in the east. Now there is a short wave moving across Hudson Bay, and there is some colder air up here, okay, but it's got no way to get down here, okay, and it's gonna just kind of move into eastern Canada and northern New England, and of course all the energy out in the west just keeps piling on and going into the plains. Here's a cutoff low with our system today in the plains, running up into Minnesota and then just kind of spinning away, and then gradually shifting to the east as we move into Friday. Now, if this were more vigorous and a little further south, and maybe with a couple of other things, we'd be having a different conversation for the end of the week. But we're not having a different conversation at the end of the week.
no, we're not.
There's too much energy running around. It gets some troughing here along about Saturday, Sunday, so that will, as you said, probably bring temperatures back closer to average for this time of year. Then that trough pulls out, and another one replaces it around the 10th or 11th here with a negatively tilted trough from Michigan to the southeast coast. And you think, okay, well, that's not too shabby, but I'll show you what it does with that. And then you're sort of left. The West is actually improving a little bit at the end of the forecast period here on the European, which is January 12th, because we do start to see some ridging building up in the West Coast, and a trough, a deep trough from the Aleutians down along 150 west. The question is, does that hold there, or does it start crashing the ridge in the West Coast and just bringing us back to where we were? I think that's where that's where the mystery lies in all of this. But just looking at the European, and remember, folks, the European here is showing a total liquid precipitation and not where rain versus snow. So this is tomorrow with this warm front setting up with some showers or an area of rain that moves up through the northeast. We get into the warm sector Tuesday night and Wednesday, and again, I think we're going to see record highs possibly on Wednesday in some places. There's your low in Ohio. The cold front comes through with more showers late in the day, Wednesday into Wednesday night. The front stalls, but who cares? The wave goes way out anyway, and there's just the upper trough itself produces a little bit of precipitation. There's cold air aloft on Friday, but this is so minuscule, it's not going to mean much of anything, in my view. And then you got this system that comes out on Sunday that kind of drops down in the Ohio Valley. Probably be a little bit of snow with that in Ohio and maybe western Maryland and West Virginia, perhaps even into parts of southern Pennsylvania, just a little bit. And then that goes out. And then you have some sort of system in the Gulf weak that comes out, and all of a sudden you got a storm that's way out offshore. So that doesn't do you much of any good. And we're at the 240-hour period now. If we switch
10
over
days.
to 10 days. So if we switch over to the GFS, and I don't know that the GFS is correct on this, but if you switch over to the GFS, it's all the same idea. So here we got, you got this system here for tomorrow. There's your warm front goes by. Then you got the cold front with some rain. You see the snow kind of winding down in the plain in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Then this upper trough comes through at the end of the week with maybe enough cold air to produce a little snow in upstate New York and Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And then that goes away. Sunday, there's a low that you see a little bit of snow there in Ohio and western Maryland. Again, yawn. And then a Gulf low comes out, so the European and GFS are somewhat consistent. The only difference is the GFS decides to make a 980-ish low off the North Carolina coast. And there is some cold air with that high near Lake Superior, but it seems to be pinned more northwest, north of the lakes, and not coming down. There's no mechanism to force that cold air down into the cyclone, so that low, even if it does develop, winds up getting kicked out well to the east with nothing going on, and then we just kind of sit there with waiting for another cold front, which pops up very late in the forecast period. I mean, the GFS late this afternoon to me was not anything worth being encouraged about through the middle part of the month. It's just not. And neither is the European for that matter, except for the fact that maybe toward the end of the Europeans' run, there's some hint of something, getting better in the Pacific.
And Keith James brings up a good point. The fact is that it's maddening. And the fact is that because of the warm weather, the one thing that is really been damaging to one industry is the ski resorts. They have not really had, even at night, enough cold air to even make a significant amount of snow. And it's what else can I tell you? This is not a good pattern if you want cold and snow. It may very well change sometime down the road, but in the immediate future, in the next 6 to 10 or maybe 8 to 14 days, it's going to be pretty much the same story as what we've already seen.
Well, I'm trying to get it's hard to see with these colors. I'm going to try a different map here. Let's go 500 millibar heights in. Oh, I guess I'm stuck with this. So I have the CFS model. If the folks, I love the pivotal weather. If I could make a suggestion, give us a North America view of this. It would be it would be certainly very useful. So if you're hearing me, pivotal guys, I'm going to send them an email, which every time I do, they never respond to it. But now that I'm a paying customer with a commercial license, they might respond to it. So this is Monday. This is Monday, January 23rd. There's some kind of cutoff there sitting on the west shores of Lake Erie. It's a positively tilted trough. And then there's something else around the 27th. There's some sort of trough there in the Ohio Valley that's moving east. Everything on this is just kind of sliding west to east. Looks a little different from what I saw earlier. So I'm going to just bring up the surface here. And by the way, folks, I don't know this for sure, but because the European, the European actually does go out to like 8, 9, 1,000 hours. All right, I don't see it. It's not available that I've seen. It's not available for free, certainly, and I don't even know where to get it commercially. But some people get their hands on it. And whenever you look on your apps on the ones that give you a 45-day forecast, it's either from the CFS model or it's from the European. It might even be the GFS. Maybe there's some places have the GFS that goes out over 1,000 hours. So there's your 45-day forecast for you. So let's just look at the surface here. Probably get a better idea. So, I mean, there's a little bit colder around the 15th. Some kind of low here that comes out of Georgia. And another one follows. That goes to the south, but whatever cold air there is gone. And then a kind of a big storm that forms and goes up the west side of the Appalachians into eastern Canada with some colder air behind it, but nothing. Yeah, look at that, Joe, right there. on the 27th. You see it?
Yep.
Actually, it's on this run, it's a little further south,
Winter
believe it or
storm
not.
Cioffi.
Yes, there you go. So there's 1,004 low off the North Carolina coast with snow in North Carolina, Virginia, up to southern New Jersey, and then just offshore. Naturally. Well, look, here's the thing. If it's showing something, if it was showing something, if you looked at this and it had the low in the ideal position and dark blue snow all over the place, it's not going to be there. So you're better off that it just kind of hints at something somewhere and then you play it from there. I mean, again, it does look colder. Once you get past the 20th, it starts to look colder. And there's a nice big high that comes down. Now here's a 985 low, Joe, sitting southeast of Nantucket on February 2nd. And there's a big
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, and there's a big 1051 high with bitter cold thicknesses in Western Canada starting to shift eastward. So the CFS will give you a little bit of hope that we could get out of this pattern. What we get into, and that's the other thing we need to really kind of point out here too, Joe. That's really important, probably more important than anything else. You can have all the pattern change you want, but that doesn't guarantee you anything. We could go from a bad pattern to one that has cold air but has no room for any storms to develop if you're looking for winter storms. On the other hand, it could be a pattern that's cold, but every time something happens, the trough position is too far west and you warm up in rain, especially along the coastal plain. So there's no guarantee that we could go. We may go to a colder pattern, but it may not be a good colder pattern. I think that's the best way to put it.
Maybe one of these winters, Joe, where we don't get much of anything, but North Carolina, maybe Charlotte gets like 20 inches of snow from some freak occurrence or whatever, and that would only jam the stake through the heart of all of the snow lovers and winter weather lovers up here, even more so. By the way, David Schwartz points out on the chat board that at 7:18 p.m. Central Time, which was just a few minutes ago Eastern Time, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located near Tamaha, moving northeast at 40 miles an hour, and the full warning for Haskell, Muskogee, and Sequoia in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Okay. All right. Very good. The Joe Rayo haircut. You know what, Joe? You stopped bleeding. 83% you have 83% say it was good, and 17% say not so good. So 83% agree with Mrs. Rayo, and 17% agree with you, which means you have a perfect marriage.
And this shows you, folks, what kind of a winter it is so far, that it's come down to voting on my haircut as opposed to talking about dynamic meteorology and snow and ice and whatever. This is what it's all boiled down to, to use some of the time up that we have here on Joe and Joe.
Yes, it's sad.
Tomorrow we'll vote on Joe's goatee.
Oh, all right, we could do that. We could do that tomorrow. I mean, it's nothing new. I mean, it's kind of sloppy. Next time I get when I go get my haircut, because I can't. I have a buzzer here, but I am so clumsy. I cannot, and I've tried. I can't get it to. When I try to trim it, it comes out crooked and wrong. Um,
And Steve Lapointe brings up a good point. He said we got 110 votes on the poll about my hair, but we only have 78 likes. So how about it, folks? How about another? Well, now it's up to 80.
Right.
How about another 20 thumbs up here? So
20 to take us over 100. That would make us feel good.
And then we can
make us feel good here.
Then we can go to bed tonight with a smile on our faces.
Exactly. So hey, you know what? Maybe, and we've had these winters before, Joe, where you have to wait. You have to wait almost the whole winter to get that one chance.
Well, what was it?
It wouldn't even be a big snowfall, just a chance for a snowfall, let alone. And I hate to even bring that up because get people. The snow weenies are, right now are just they're in coma. just utterly stunned by this all. But yeah, we've had that happen more than a few times in the course of our career, our 40-year plus careers.
97, 98. That winter, we had to wait until 2 days after the vernal equinox to get 5 inches of snow in New York. Otherwise, it would have been a winter with barely anything.
Yeah, I also seem to remember, I think it was either 73, 74 maybe, or I think it was 73, 74 that the accumulating snows, there were two accumulating snows. They came in the month of March, and they came during the same in the same week, and they both produced about 4 inches, and that was it. I mean, there was hardly any in December, hardly any in January, hardly any in February. That was a winter of a year. And then 1975, as I recall, in mid-February of 75, we had an 8-inch snowfall, and it was the first snowfall above 6 inches since 1969. So that was 70, 71, 72, 73, 5 years. 5 years that without a snowfall above 6 inches.
Well,
So
they do have on the Upton site 6-inch snowfalls or greater. In 1970, none. 1971, one, and that was January 1st.
all right, maybe I could be wrong. Okay.
1972, none. 1973, none. 1974, February 8th and 9th of 1974, 6 inches.
Okay.
And
So my memory's a little off.
1975, February 12th, which, by the way, at that time was still
Lincoln's
considered
birthday.
a holiday.
Yeah.
Lincoln's birthday, 7.8 inches. But then we had, now, can you see, you people, you snow people who are complaining about the fact that there's not much snow.
Right. But it should be pointed out though, in all those years, the snowfall totals for the whole season, from 70, 71, 71, 72, 72, 73, 73, 74, 74, 75, 75, 76. Those were all below normal snowfall years. So it wasn't, there weren't other snowfalls. You could say, okay, well, maybe they got 8 inches, but maybe there was a whole bunch of 3 or 4 inch snowfalls. No, those were not good winters at all.
Right. In the decade of the 70s, 5 out of the 10 years in the decade of the 70s had no snowfalls greater than 6 inches. And you folks who are complaining now. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the decade of the 2000s. From like 2000 to 2009, we had in 2000 we had one 12-inch snowfall on December 30th. 2001, 6 inches. 2002, 6 inches. 2003, 2 massive snowfalls, 16th and 17th of February, 19.8, and then December 5 to 7, 14 inches of snow. 2004, 10.3. 2005, not 1, not 2, but 3 snowfalls above 6 inches. And in fact, one of them was 13.8. Then in 2006, 26.9. I'm Joe. Year after year after year during the first 10 years of the 21st century, there were snowfalls, major snowfalls. And meanwhile, in the 1970s, when you and I were
nothing,
we were tiny tykes in those.
And the 80s and the 80s weren't much better. The 80s,
right?
And actually, if you take out 93, 94, maybe to a lesser extent, you can say 92, 93 to a certain extent. So, but I'll include that. So if you 92, 93, 93, 94, and 95, 96, the other 7 winters were horrible. Okay.
Right.
In the 80s, almost all of them were horrible, except for the year you had the megapolitan snowstorm, and that was the only one, pretty much the only snowfall of the winter in that year. The 2002-2003 winter for me, living on Long Island, was one of the best winters I've ever experienced, because that was known, at least by me and to those who listen to me, is the Suffolk County winter. Because as you said, Joe, that 2002, 2003 winter, what did New York City have? Like 39 inches, you said, or something, 40?
In terms of the whole winter,
Yeah.
because I'm just looking right now at the 6 inch total.
Oh,
I
okay.
could
Because
look at.
0203, I think that was one of the 40-inch Central Park winters in Suffolk County. We finished up where I live, where I lived in Suffolk County, which was in the central part of the county, with 78 inches for the winter, and that was the second highest um, seasonal snowfall ever. You can look at the Brookhaven Labs data to kind of confirm it. I'm not just making these numbers up out of thin air. Uh,
No,
90, not you, Joe. I'm just saying in general. 95 to 95, 96. Long Island, as measured at Brookhaven Labs, had 96 inches, which is number one. That 2002 2003 winter is now the third snowiest because it was eclipsed by, I believe it was the winter of, it was either 2013-14 or 2014-15. It might have been, I'm going to say it was maybe
I,
20,
I'm
where
going to say
it was,
based on Central Park. Central Park had in 2013, 2012, and 2013, they only had 26.1. But
oh,
the
no,
very next year,
go to 13-14.
13, 14, Central Park had 57.4,
Okay, and what did 14-15 have?
50.3.
So it could have been either one of those years. My memory's kind of failing me, but in one of those 2 years, uh, Suffolk County, at least where I live, I measured 83 inches for the season, which was so that became the second highest. So that's why I just get such a kick out of people. And I always get such a laugh out of people with these really selective memories to come back and say, we used to get so much snow in the 70s and the 80s, especially when they bring up the 70s and 80s. I
Right,
want to cringe. I
right.
just want to cringe because those years were awful for snow folks.
I mean, I'm looking just from 2006 to 2019, and I'm looking at totals at Central Park: 12.4, 11.9, 27.6, 51.4, 2010, 2011, 61.9. I mean, in our wildest dreams back in the 70s, Joe, we rarely ever saw numbers like that year after year after year. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like all of you people who are complaining about, oh, we don't, where's the snow? You don't know anything. You did not, either that or you just have, as Joe says, selective memory, because the 70s and the 80s and the 90s were just like, compared to what we've had during the first 20 or 22 years of the 21st century. It has been absolutely, I mean, we put together for the first time in New York weather history, going all the way back to 1869.
Right,
For the first time,
440-inch years in a row.
correct, 2002, 2003, 2003, 04, 04, 05, 05, 06. I mean, admittedly, I think in 2005, 2006, we were at 39.9, and they found something
They
to,
found that,
to
right. I think there was a tenth of an inch in April or something that
right.
they added in there to make it a
They added
round
in.
number. Well, you know something, I'm good with that, and I'll tell you why. For all those years in the 70s that they measured the snow on the car tops, including the blizzard of '78,
True.
we got a tenth of an inch back in 2006, in April of 2006, and we got a tenth of an inch back in the January 2016 storm to make it the snowiest storm, 27 inches in one 24-hour period in New York City. It was like a tenth of an inch short of the record, and they added it at the last minute. They said, "Ooh, we measured this wrong. We found an extra tenth of an inch. It's fine, okay." Because they still got about at least 2 feet of 2 feet of unmeasured snow from the 70s and 80s that they need to make up for. So we get 2/10 back. It works for me. And on
I
that
mean,
note,
17.7 with the blizzard of 78, February 5th to 7th, 1978. And meanwhile, at my house in Throgs Neck, and I measured meticulously a number of different places each time I went out to measure, and I ended up with 22.2. And I was always scratching my head and saying, why did Central Park come in with like 5 inches less than I did? But,
and
you know,
I lived a mile or so away from you. I could certainly verify that. Leon
yeah.
Probinski can We can verify that Leon Probitsky hit the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Leon. So did Brandon Doherty, hitting the tip jar, and they both have those fabulous emojis on there, which I sometimes can't figure out exactly what they are. But anyway, we got the 100 likes. Thank you. We're up to 110. And on that note, it's time to say goodbye. Joe Rayo, 84% said good, 16% said not so good with guarding your hair. Tomorrow night we'll do my goatee, so we'll end the poll there. And we'll see everybody tomorrow night at 7:35 Eastern Time.
Good night, everyone.
Nighty night.